Well, we got a wet, rainy day today, so we're out here trying to keep this momentum going. So what did we do today so far? Well, just got done welding in these gussets for the front windshield upright. These are, I think it's like 3/4 stock, and they are known to break under normal circumstances, but especially when you wheelie, because as you force is transferred across, and this becomes the weak point. So I welded these gussets in. They're solid. This thing's got way less flex than it did before, and if it does break, it's going to be somewhere in the straight section here, and we can just sleeve that. Eventually I'll probably upgrade to the bigger 1-inch stuff, but cross that bridge when we come to it. I got my belt, and seems like it's going to work pretty good. It is a Dayco HP 2031, which is a aftermarket for what is originally a John Deere belt, if I'm not mistaken, used on a Gator. So it's 1.25 inches, or just under 1.25 inches by like 49. So it's a little bit wider than the stock belt too, which is nice. I'm hoping that's going to give me earlier engagement to match the low end torque of the diesel. Because with the last setup, we kind of had to rev it out to get it to go anywhere. So hopefully that's good. I added some extra welds on the receiver hitch there in the event that this thing has to hook up and move something, just for peace of mind. So I've got a list, and I'm just kind of checking things off as I go. No parts due in today, so just making do with what I got here, and I will see you guys in the next clip. All right, so I'm still trying to get this throttle linkage dialed in, and I think I'm on the right path. And basically what I did was I made this little link here, and sorry to all the purists out there, but you can see that I've drilled and bent and bastardized this assembly pretty good, probably with more to come. But anyway, so basically what I did here is just a little piece of flat stock with a welded thread coming out of the back of it, so that it sits as flush as possible. And that is going to allow me to get really close to the axis of the fuel control on this thing. So I have some slop because I used too small of a thread, and the plan is going to be to locate it with this bolt, and then either use this hole if possible, or more than likely just run a weld along here. And that way it is mostly reversible, because if I pulled out these limiter screws, I could just grind the weld off and it would come apart. So I don't think I'm going to get to it tonight, but that's going to be the plan, and that should match the throw of the cable on the golf cart pretty good. And then I made this little eye bolt here for a throttle return spring. That should work good. And then I think if I can leave this arm here, I will. Otherwise, I'm going to cut this. I'm going to leave this leading edge here so that it can still interact with the limiter screw, and then maybe make like something that comes up and out, and then have that be the fuel shut off that way. So not a ton of progress, but I think we're on the right track to that. So we'll see you guys in the next clip. All right, so I think I got the throttle figured out. I moved the stud pretty far in, and then tacked it onto the arm here. And I have sufficient clearance that it doesn't interfere with the fuel shutoff. I have the cable adjusted, so I have about as good of travel as I can expect. I think I'm probably getting as high as maybe 3,500 RPM. There's a touch left in it on the top end, but I'm not super worried about that. I had to take the pedal assembly apart to verify that the cable was working okay, because there is some slack in that joint there, but that's okay. This return spring is pretty critical to it working, because this captive washer here, this thing's about to rot out, and then the corresponding one up here did, so the pedal itself doesn't return, and this also helps pull the arm back down to idle. So that's really important there. So that's cool. I just did a little test run with it. And at idle, the belt is grabby, but I don't think it's going to be so grabby to the point where the brakes can't stop it. So I think I actually have that dialed in pretty good. And now I can move on to whatever's next. So I went ahead and pulled the motor for what is hopefully the last time. And we can begin final assembly. So I got the frame welded out here from what I could reach on this side. So I got to go in and take care of the back. Got to figure out what I want to do here. I'll probably cap that and then maybe just with plate make like a triangle gusset there. See how carried away I want to get with it. I would like to come in here and just spray bomb the subframe. I have to never seize the threads on that joint in the front. See if I can get the nose of it to come up a little bit. Probably not. I'm probably just going to leave it alone. And then after that, the motor should be in for good. Unfortunately, some of the parts that I had on order are a little delayed. Most notably, the hoses for the radiator, which is going to hamper my ability to test drive this thing. So I'm just going to pick away at it. I think since I took the floor out, I may as well paint that. Just kind of paint some stuff to make it look like I kind of care about this thing. And I guess we'll see where that takes us. It's supposed to be good weather tomorrow, so hopefully tomorrow afternoon after work I can get out here and make some progress on this thing. Quick little spray bomb on the frame. Pretty shitty. And we are basically ready to start putting this thing back together for hopefully the last time. Plugging away. You can see we got the body on, we got the floor back on, and the rubber mat. Kind of cut up the wiring a little bit. I'm going to still wait to do that until all of the electrical components are in place. So that would be like the fan for the radiator and the sending unit for the fuel tank. Probably what we're going to do is we'll come out here to the parts department. Probably going to cut a hole with a hole saw in this thing because I kind of don't care. And that'll be the access point to fill this thing up. I think this is going to be tall enough that we'll have kind of like a straight shot down in there. So maybe if I'm feeling fancy, I'll come up with some sort of trick trap door or something like that. I'm also going to have to trim this out bigger. As you can see, the exhaust is hitting, and I think it's going to get to the point where I'm going to make a little plate that's going to go up here to hold this whole thing together. Just because not that it's structural by any means, but it's pretty floppy like that. So once that's done, we can plumb the fuel. I'm still waiting on my radiator hoses, which aren't going to be here till Sunday, which really blows. But yeah, so we're looking good. Hopefully by Sunday night, we can have this thing running and driving. Oh, we're not out of the woods yet. I got the harness kind of roughly routed where it's going to go with different things. And for the fuel tank, went out and cut a piece of rubber mat there for a little wear plate underneath, as well as using rubber fuel hose on top. So a little change of plans here. This and this are going to go here and here respectively. So it'll tie into the seat, which is the best way I could figure out how to do it so that you can still take the step off without needing to take the fuel tank out. Just for transportation purposes, sometimes it's better to take the step off so that it's not as long or whatever. So we got that figured out, and that will get a test fit when we drop the seat back on. Made this little support plate here just to connect the body to keep it from being so, flippy floppy. Mounted my stop cable. I was gonna try and use the factory choke cable mount just because it's cleaner, and this thing isn't threaded long enough to be able to pass through the bracket and the support bracket, and it was going to need washers because this is a smaller diameter thread than the choke cable. So I wound up making this plate, and unfortunately there was already holes drilled through the body there, so I had to work with those. And I tried to square up the plate as best I could, but you can see it's off kilter. So that is mildly annoying, but obviously not the end of the world. Working on getting the cable routed to the shutoff lever there, so just chipping away. The plan right now is to have Kyle come over and help just tie up some loose ends on this thing, and hopefully we can drive this tomorrow. Well, as promised, Kyle showed up to help work on the things that I don't want to do. So he's going to town. We had to modify the sending unit to work on the new tank, and we're plumbing the supply and return. And over here, I was working on the guard for the radiator, as well as skid plate for the engine. So the engine, the oil pan is not going to be entirely covered, but you can see that the fill plug or the drain plug is within the confines of the plate, so it would take a pretty well placed rock to hit that, and hopefully with the additional ground clearance versus the last time, we don't have to worry about that. So can keep checking things off the list, and we'll update you as we get more stuff done. This video is already way too long, and due to FedEx, we're not going to have this thing done today. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. I'll see you guys in the next one when hopefully this thing is done.